Hey, this is Adam. Hope you enjoyed this Final Fantasy VII Cosplay cinematic. The shoot was a bit different since this was an open shoot that I joined in on rather than the ones that I usually put together. It was a lot of fun getting to meet people who I've only known on social media and get to meet them face to face, Libra and Rose being an exception as they were also part of the group cosplaying as Cloud and Aerith. The location we went to was also really cool. We did this at the Seattle Georgetown Steam Plant, which was a really great fit for the Final Fantasy VII aesthetic. Not as much planning went into this compared to my other shoots that I usually do, because I've never been to the location before, but I enjoy nerding out on somehow some of these shots came together, so here we go. So I was really excited for this because it was a nice change in pace from the usual genre of Genshin Impact videos that we normally do. So the homework I did to get the feel of Final Fantasy VII again was to take a quick look at the remake's gameplay and some of the cutscenes to get a feel for the color grading I'd want to try to achieve, as well as how to best represent the visual effects that we see from the game. The first thing I noticed is that they're very particle heavy, embers and sparks up the wazoo, pretty much like the J.J. Abrams of particles. He's well known for the amount of lens flares he puts in his films, if you didn't get that reference. Anyways, I knew I was going to be using a lot of Trapco particular for this one and a lot of spark and ember elements to pull off these effects. The first shot I worked on was this shot of Michael cosplaying as Barret, where we have him shooting his machine gun. So the first thing I tackled was actually the shell ejects from the gun. Now you probably don't see it with everything else going on, but they're there. With a bullet shell element from Action VFX, this was easier than some of the previous attempts that I've done in my past work. Not too hard, but tedious. I animated the shell ejecting from what looks like the side port of the gun and chose that to be where they'd fly out. The animation of it was meant to be very quick with 4 frames in between each shell, animating them to kick out to the side and quickly drop to the floor. Now as Michael pivots shooting from a different perspective, I needed to make adjustments for my copy and pasted shell ejects to try to match the angle better. Once I was satisfied with the shell ejects, I pre-composed all of those layers to organize and help save some processing power. After that, I moved on to adding the muzzle flashes. I used assets from Action VFX for this and needed different perspectives for the flashes since he pivots the gun in an arc in front of him. To make the flashes more realistic, I added sparks and gun smoke to make it look as flashy as the game. Also, to give the scene a little bit more dynamicness, I added some embers in the foreground and blurred it some so it's not too distracting. Next, I worked on Jade's shot here as Tifa, taking inspiration again from the gameplay's visuals. I had the idea, of course, to use particles and embers to represent her power-ups, but also that her hands and feet produce tracer lines or speed lines, making them, of course, look flashier. For this shot, I wanted to have the embers bursting from her fist to give off a power aura or a power boost look, starting off with the compositing a burst of embers on one fist, masking around the hand to make it look like it's really encompassing the fist rather than just on top of it, adding some more glow to make it look more realistic and flashier with the deep glow plugin, then of course doing the same with the other hand. To add even more, I used more lightning elements to give it more of a charged look, motion tracking the elements onto the arm, then adding some glow effects again. Now to top it off, I just added some more ember elements to the foreground. Now for this sequence, first starting off with animating where the emitters, which is done by hand, then onto figuring out the particle physics. I was a little rusty on how to use it since I don't use the light emitter feature that often, but after a lot of experimenting, I finally nailed down the look I was going for, making the lines thin and dropping off quick to give them a nice wisp towards the end of the particle's life. And all of that put together looking like so. Now, although I didn't get to shoot with Rose too much, I really like this shot here. This was actually just shot off to the side while the others were shooting stills. Really simple shot, but the way the light came through the window and backlit Rose looked really ethereal. Also not planned, but I wanted to add some VFX for fun and wanted to add this green aura emitting from her hands as she's praying. This consisted of Video Copilot's optical flare plugin and energy flow element from Trident Digital. Like Tifa's power-up effect, I use a mask to make the energy and flare look like it's resonating from her palms and also make it look more subtle around the edges of the effects. To top the scene off, I also added a few particles from Trapco particular to simulate subtle dust particles that you may catch through the volumetric light from the window behind her. Last but not least was this shot where I flew from one person to another. This one was a tough one to nail down, and we did a decent number of retakes for this. I even got the honor of getting bonked by a Buster Sword. Oh, that was off. But it turned out really cool. Again, I didn't have a plan to add VFX, but just for fun, I added some embers for when Jade gets into the Black Widow stance here. I'm not sure if this was supposed to be a magic, but I added a healing wind energy effect when Rose raises her hand. It happens very quickly, so I don't use the 3D camera tracker for this, and I just adjust the position a bit to fake the scaling as we zoom in. Again, a really fun shoot. I definitely will keep this location in mind for some other projects for the future. A big thank you to Anne for putting together an awesome shoot. Also, be sure to go check out everyone's social media. Their cosplay and Anne's photography is really awesome. Links in the description below. That's going to be it for this one. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.